Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show. Good morning. Welcome in. Tuesday, September 10th. As I'm getting a phone call, Classic BK knows we're going live at 10, calls right at 10:01. It's Tuesday. I was thinking all day yesterday was Tuesday. So when I woke up today and I got on the phone with my boss, Blake, he goes, yeah, Tuesday, getting things going. It was a little bit jarring for me, but it is Tuesday. We got a lot to talk about, a lot of football to go over today. We had week one for the college football season last weekend, week two this past week, a ton of upsets, a lot of really interesting football on the college scene. And then, of course, week one for the NFL kicked off. We had Monday Night Football last night. We're going to get into a lot of what went down over the weekend. Again, upsets, some great TV ratings continue post-pandemic. We're going to talk a little bit about Bill Belichick, who made his week one NFL in-game media debut. He's obviously done a few things here over the last couple of months. Maybe what's next for him. Gonna also talk a little bit about, you guessed it, TV rights, ESPN, DirecTV, how that impacted Monday Night Football last night. And then we'll round it out with a little bit of NHL talk as we are officially done with the NHL off season. We are in season. As of this week, we'll be at the rink on Thursday. Cannot wait. Really looking forward just to getting back in, like you guys have heard me say, getting back into the routine, getting back into knowing what I'm doing on most nights and just being back in the rhythm of the season. I think my wife is ready for it as well. I've been at home way too many nights over the last 3 months. She's gotten very used to me being out. Let's get into it. Like I said, a lot of football to go over for this week, but it's all right. That's good stuff. There's a lot of interesting things happening, starting with maybe the biggest upset of the year, and it's already happened. Northern Illinois, the Huskies knock off Notre Dame at Notre Dame, 16-14. This was Northern Illinois' first win against an AP top 5 opponent since 2013. More than 10 years since they've, excuse me. First ever win versus a top 5 opponent, and is the first time since 2013 that this win put them into the top 25. Northern Illinois finishes the week ranked 25th, the first time since 2013 since they've been ranked. It was their first ever win against an AP top 5 school. Notre Dame was ranked number 5. And here's the kicker in all of it, folks. We talked last week about some of the process of NCAA, specifically Division I, and even more specifically, top programs like Notre Dame, that in the first couple weeks of the season, it is not at all uncommon. They're called guarantee games. These bigger programs will pay schools like NIU or like what we saw the CU Buffs do here just a couple weeks ago in Boulder by inviting in North Dakota State. These programs will invite in typically historically weaker programs, programs that really have no business competing with some of the larger schools, and they'll pay them a large amount of money to come in and basically get their butts kicked on a Saturday. Most of the schools, they'll talk openly about it and say, yeah, we don't love losing, but boy, that's a really nice $1 million boost for our athletic program. Well, that was once again the case here with Notre Dame and Northern Illinois, as Northern Illinois collected $1.4 million on Saturday from Notre Dame to go in there and beat Notre Dame. That's got to make it just a little bit of a tougher pill to swallow if you're talking about on the business and athletic director side of the loss. But look, you give Northern Illinois credit. Executed a game plan and did not give Notre Dame an inch. You see a lot of games like this, and really, we even saw one this weekend where the games can stay close and competitive, but you get late and the depth just can kind of wear you down of these larger programs, especially, when you're talking in a game like this, let alone, what we saw between CU and Nebraska, where that was just, CU was clearly overmatched. They didn't have, the depth at all positions to hang in that game. Usually that's what you see here, except the disparity is usually much larger. Northern Illinois held on and won 16-14 by the skin of their teeth. They escaped this one. It was an emotional reaction on the sidelines, as you can see right here. The team pouring off. Really, I mean, you hear the phrase all the time, this was their Super Bowl. That will likely be, this is the biggest win in NIU program history already. And for a lot of those athletes on that team, it'll probably be the biggest win of their career. Their coach was openly emotional, dropped to his knees on the sidelines when the clock hit 0. This was not an insignificant win for Northern Illinois, potentially largely detrimental for Notre Dame. And like I said, hit the pocketbook for Notre Dame as well. I was actually standing on the field in Lincoln, Nebraska, when this game went final. Huge reaction from the crowd. It was kind of cool to be part of that moment. The other game that got a big reaction from the crowd, that maybe not quite as big, was Iowa State knocking off Iowa. Iowa was ranked, I believe, number 19. They've since obviously shifted. Iowa State not ranked. This isn't as big of an upset. This is an in-state rivalry that we see play out in most seasons. Iowa State has had a quality program in the past, but still, Iowa was heavily favored coming into this game, and this win actually came about 15 minutes. This one went final about 15 minutes after Northern Illinois. So again, we were standing down on the field in Lincoln Memorial Stadium for Nebraska CU. NIU's game goes final and the crowd goes crazy. Iowa State knocks off Iowa, and it didn't quite draw the same reaction from the crowd, but you just started hearing all the buzz down and around the field of what is going on this weekend, and maybe even put a little bit of doubt in the head of some Cornhusker fans as we were just seeing top teams, favored teams fall all over the place. Iowa State knocked off Iowa with 6 seconds remaining by kicking a last-minute field goal to win that game. Couple of upsets NCAA, and then a huge upset in NFL Week 1 as the New England Patriots knock off the Cincinnati Bengals. I almost said the Cleveland Bengals. Cincinnati Bengals. Now, look, everyone's heard the phrase, any given Sunday, any given night. I cover hockey, 82 games a year. And that sport, I feel like more than any, there is no such thing as a guaranteed win. There's a lot of crazy bounces, a lot of things that happen. Now, you look at this, and the New England Patriots are an NFL professional football team. They have quality players. They have fierce competitors, world-class athletes. You cannot just assume any game is a guaranteed win, guaranteed loss one way or the other. But this game continued to be a reminder of that. As the New England Patriots in preseason had an NFL worst projection of 4 wins. Their line out of Vegas was set at 4.5. They were the only team worse than the Denver Broncos line of 5.5. This was not a team that a lot of people had a lot of faith in. And conversely, the Cincinnati Bengals were among the league's best in terms of preseason projections, with their line set at 10.5 and widely being considered one of the top teams in the league, top 4 team in the league. Joe Burrow back at quarterback, Jamar Chase. This is a team that has Super Bowl aspirations, high expectations for this season. Now, week 1, your season isn't over. Like I said, their line is at 10.5 wins. They're projected, again, somewhere between 9 and 12 wins. That means you're going to lose a couple games. So is one loss the worst thing in the world? No, but suddenly if you're the Bengals, you're playing from behind the 8 ball in a way that you weren't necessarily expecting to. You weren't expecting to come out of week one already having to chase your division, especially as a team that is going to be, assuming that you're assuming that this is going to be a team that's going to be in contention for the division, is going to be pushing for a spot in the Super Bowl, let alone the playoffs. And again, just suddenly you're 0-1 and the season just off to a different start than maybe you were expecting. It'll be interesting to see after what had to have been a disappointing year for them last year, just not what they were expecting. Of course, you had the Joe Burrow injury, et cetera, et cetera. Going to be interesting to see how the Bengals respond from this. You see it all the time where this type of stuff happens, and then the Bengals go on to win the Super Bowl, and we all look back and laugh at how we all worried about the Bengals after week one. But they do lose to the New England Patriots, and the Patriots are well on their way to hitting the over for that 4.5. Let's keep it going here. Monday Night Football. Last night, Aaron Rodgers, the New York Jets fall flat on their face to the San Francisco 49ers, 32-19. It was a little bit of a late push from the Jets to make it close-ish, if you want to consider that close. The gap had really widened at one point with the 49ers. I believe it was 24-3 at one point when I was watching. I think that was the biggest margin between the two teams before the Jets did get a touchdown, get themselves into double digits. Were able to do a little bit more between there and the end of the game. But really, this was a game that no Christian McCaffrey for the 49ers. And really, it did not look like they struggled much at all, even against a strong Jets defense. They were able to move the ball easily. There was one sequence where I actually believe they had 2 touchdowns called back. They were flags. The touchdowns weren't called back, but where the 49ers actually ran the ball in, threw for a touchdown. Both of them had flags, and it just didn't matter. They scored 3 times on the same drive. One of them eventually counted, but it just looked like the Jets really didn't have a lot of answers for that 49ers offense. And really, the question that everybody wants to know, the only thing anybody really truly cares about here with this one last night was, how did Aaron Rodgers look? Missed the entire season last year after going down in week one with a season-ending injury last year. Everyone was thinking he was going to be the Jets' savior. Well, there was a lot of talk of, hey, he's back. And here we go. This is it. Super Bowl contender New York Jets. Well, didn't quite look that way. Here's what we got last year from Zach Wilson in that game when Aaron Rodgers went down. Of course, Zach Wilson now with the Denver Broncos, but that was a quarterback that they were looking to replace. Aaron Rodgers was coming here to help get the Jets over the hump and into the playoffs in a way that Zach Wilson never could. Well, if you look right there on your screen, numbers between Zach Wilson last year in week one and what Aaron Rodgers did last night feel awfully comparable. What Aaron Rodgers is attempting to do, it's not that it hasn't been done. In fact, we've seen it done multiple times in recent years. Semi-recent years, I guess. Geez Louise, as we are rapidly approaching 1 decade since the Denver Broncos won their Super Bowl with Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning, came back from an injury that many didn't know if he could return from, to go on and play some of the best football of his career, go back to 2 Super Bowls, winning one of them, maybe in one of his not as strong seasons. And then obviously Tom Brady seems like the only athlete that has ever beat Father Time, got out, played longer than maybe you thought he would, and then got out before the decline really hit, winning a Super Bowl well over the age of 40. That's what Aaron Rodgers is attempting to do. But as difficult as that is at baseline, stacking an entire year where you didn't play on top of that, I think is going to be a tall order. Now, I'm also willing to I don't necessarily want to use the word write off what we saw yesterday out of Aaron Rodgers, but you have to give a little bit of grace relative to what I just said. He missed an entire season. He's already well over 40, missed an entire season of football, and last night was trying to get back into the rhythm of things against a team that just went to the Super Bowl 6 months ago. 6 months ago? 7 months ago. 7 months ago. Jeez Louise, we go a long time in between football. 7 months ago. So tall order. Let's wait and see a little bit on Aaron Rodgers here. Last night was not encouraging. If you were a Jets fan, that was not what you were wanting to see. 13 for 21 for just 167 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Let's wait to see how he settles into this season. But I do think if you're the Jets, looking at that game last night, Aaron Rodgers isn't quite going to be the quick fix immediately boosting you into Super Bowl contention that you thought. This is a very good roster. They need Aaron Rodgers to play like Aaron Rodgers. We didn't see it last night. I'll be keeping an eye on that for sure. It would be nice if Aaron Rodgers made it a little bit easier to root for him, right? Just a little bit. Just a little bit easier to root for him than a lot of what he does. But one other caveat with what we saw last night, Monday Night Football. Well, I guess I saw it. If you had DirecTV, you didn't see it. Disney and ESPN are still without a deal, and, quote, tense negotiations are what is happening behind the scenes right now. It does not sound like it's an overly amicable situation. Sounds like the two sides are far apart. And really, Monday Night Football was looked at as one of the deadlines for, well, look, what's the saying? Deadline spur action. A lot of people thought something would get done in time for the first Monday Night Football game of the season. That did not happen. If you have DirecTV, you could not watch Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets take on the San Francisco 49ers last night. Look, I've talked about it at length over the last couple of months and the impact that the streaming, live TV streaming services are having on traditional over-the-top providers. ESPN, Disney, Time Warner, and Fox Sports, of course, are currently wrapped up in litigation with their Venue Sports endeavor, wrapped up in litigation with Fubo TV and probably a couple of others coming over the fact that those over-the-top providers were not offered an option to provide sports channels only, which is what Venue Sports was looking to offer for $42.99 a month. You would have been able to see Monday Night Football last night. You would have been able to watch Red Zone all day on Sunday. And oh, by the way, you would have gotten every national NHL game coming up, the vast majority of national basketball games coming up. And it's all tied up trying to figure out what they're allowed to do, what they have to offer to other outlets or other distributors, if Venue Sports is to move forward. But all this really means, and all any of you care about, especially if you have DirecTV, is how it impacts you. And what that means is that you couldn't watch the game last night. I imagine that this is going to kind of be the norm over the next 2 years as a lot of these again, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. You have your providers like DirecTV, and then you have your networks who actually own the content and produce the content, like ESPN, who's owned by Disney. I imagine that we're going to see a lot more stalemates like what's going on right now with Disney/ESPN and DirecTV, and then stuff like what we're seeing with Venue Sports being tied up in court as these networks and the companies who own the rights to this footage, who actually put on the productions, continue to find the best way for them to distribute that. We're going to see a lot more stuff like this. I imagine the consumer is going to be the one who takes the hit a lot over the next couple of years as the industry continues to kind of make this shift to a digital presence. We'll keep an eye on it. If you have DirecTV, I'm sure you will be keeping an extra close eye on this to see what that means for Monday Night Football next week. And not just Monday Night Football, but Sunday Night Football and a lot of the games that are being offered every Sunday. I guess Thursdays on Amazon Prime. But you get the point here, folks. We'll keep an eye on this one. We'll keep you on regular updates throughout the weeks to keep you guys updated on what's happening with ESPN and DirecTV. Let's keep it going here with the NFL, and let's come back locally here, talk a little bit about Bo Nix and what, I don't know if fallout is the right word. I don't think fallout is the right word, but what has been the response here from Broncos country over the last couple of days after so much optimism for Bo Nix heading into week one after what was a promising preseason. It wasn't a preseason where he lit the world on fire and looked like the second coming of Peyton Manning, but it was a strong, solid preseason where he was a player who did not look overwhelmed by the step up in competition. That was not the case on Sunday. He looked clearly overwhelmed by what was happening. The game looked like it was moving a little bit too fast for him, and his throws were off. His timing was behind. The accuracy was all over the place. All hallmarks that everyone pointed to in the preseason saying, see, look, he is ready. Look at the timing. Look at the accuracy. Look at the precision. All of which seemingly disappeared on Sunday. It has been a combination of two things. One, people saying, pump the brakes. It was his first game. Let's give him a chance to settle in. While there have been some detractors saying that was concerning because of how much different it looked than what we saw. I've heard some conversation this morning even saying it looked a little too fast for him. It looked like he saw a play, made a thought about it again, and the play was gone, and he was under pressure. Nate Jackson had a fantastic breakdown yesterday on Guerilla Sports off field where he broke down the first interception that Bo Nix threw, where the different breakdowns came, and how Bo Nix's inexperience led to him throwing a bad ball. Again, it wasn't all on Bo Nix. There was several different things that from the offensive line to the way that Cortland Sutton let a safety get in front of him to make a play on that ball. A lot of things went into it. Highly recommend you guys checking it out. I believe we have a clip floating around out there on social media of Nate Jackson talking through that, but highly encourage you guys to check that out. We'll maybe try to get that run on the show for tomorrow. It just maybe looked a step too fast for him. Now, I've felt a little vindicated these last couple days. I won't lie. I've been up here and I've been talking with our football folks and I've been saying, look, I'm not an everyday football media guy. But when you work around pro sports and you see different stages of development and different trends and that stuff that is, your mental toughness, that stuff that's universal across all sports. I saw the promise with Bo Nix, and the thing that I worried about was, do you throw him out there too quickly? Just throwing him out behind a team that I think maybe has a little bit of a reality check on this Sunday isn't very good. I think there's reasons for optimism. I think there's reasons for hope, but this is a roster that is rebuilding. When I say they're not very good, that's okay. It's meant to be like that. They're not supposed to be contending for a Super Bowl this year. They are trying to build up a team that can contend for Super Bowl for multiple years. My worry was, are you going to throw Bo Nix out there in a situation that he's not quite prepared for? And how can that mess up his development? You brought in two other quarterbacks and you held on to him. You cut a guy like Tim Patrick, who is fan favorite, wide receiver, trying to make a return to the lineup. Was a feel-good story in the preseason. You got rid of that guy so that you could hold on to three quarterbacks. To me, it felt silly to throw Bo Nix out there in week one when you weren't 100% positive that he was going to be able to hang with the speed. And now you're in an interesting situation if you're Sean Payton, because not only did you name him the starter, you named him the second rookie ever in franchise history to be a captain. Now, I'm about to do a little bit of hypothetical here, and I kind of hate doing that because it's like, yeah, what if they lose next week 300-0? It's a completely ridiculous hypothetical. Hypotheticals are hard to talk about. But based on what we saw on Sunday, I think everyone's cautious optimism is leaning more towards the cautious part than the optimism part. If you go through the next couple weeks without seeing many notable improvements from Bo Nix, what do you do? Because you're no longer just sitting down a rookie quarterback at that point and putting in a veteran. You're sitting down a captain. Do you take that captaincy away? Is the captaincy a representation of him being a starting quarterback, or is it a representation of him being a leader in that room? I was of the opinion that Bo Nix should have sat on the sidelines for weeks 1, 2, and 3. And they should have let someone else, Zach Wilson, who's been in this league for several years, Jared Stidham, who was shoehorned in front of Russell Wilson last year, let those guys start the first couple games. Let Bo Nix sit on the sideline and look at what regular season speed looks like. Keep that in mind. Bo Nix, up until Sunday, had not played against a lot of first-team defense. It was, again, at least as far as other opponents, right? He had played against a lot of second, third-string guys, very limited minutes in games. To me, this seemed like an easy. You roll out Zach Wilson or Jared Stidham, you let it go for the first couple weeks, you anticipate the results aren't going to be that good, not necessarily just as a result of the quarterback, but as a result of this being a rebuilding organization and a rebuilding football team. And then you can throw Bo Nix out there after he's heard how the communication is in a regular season game between the sideline and the quarterback. How quickly those quarterbacks are having to make reads at first team speed. How quickly you're having to make changes at first team speed. And how quickly you have to make your decisions at first team speed. You're now committed to Bo Nix, good, bad, or ugly, for the next few weeks. Probably for the rest of the season, truthfully. You rolled him out there, and then you put the letter on his chest. I think it's going to be hard to now go away from that if he continues to struggle. Again, the response here in Denver has been pretty split. Today's the off day for the Broncos. Sean Payton kind of doubled down yesterday on, yes, Bo Nix wasn't great, but we've got to be better around him. And that's the part that I keep coming back to. Yes, absolutely. By no means is that game on Bo Nix. My guy D-Mac pointed out yesterday, look, at the end of the day, was it great? Was it pretty? No, it was a one-score game. You had a chance, et cetera, et cetera. It's not the end of the world. Sean Payton's right. Some other players got to do something around him to help. More to help. But here's the reality, folks. This team is up against it. They're rebuilding. They're trying to get better. Bo Nix is going to be in for a tough season. This is going to be a tough season to develop in. A better defense coming in to Denver this weekend. We're going to see how Bo Nix bounces back, see if he got those week 1 jitters out. Couple more quick topics that we're going to work through here. Bill Belichick, like we said, kicked off. We got a nice young picture of him here. Kicked off his in-season media career this past weekend, making appearances on Monday Night Football, the regular Monday Night Football broadcast, as well as the Manning cast. But reports are, as of this morning, that Bill Belichick is looking to get back on the sidelines next season in some capacity. Reports are that he had a couple offered for some coordinator jobs, some kind of glorified assistant coach jobs, some kind of more decorated roles within front offices. None of them felt like the right fit. Bill Belichick, according to ESPN, is reporting that if the right fit is around, he would like to return to the sidelines, potentially preferably in a head coaching role. So we'll keep an eye on that. Maybe just a one-year media career for Bill Belichick. I thought he was fine on with the Mannings last night, but also wouldn't necessarily be heartbroken if he wasn't there. More ratings records continue to be shattered coming out of the pandemic. Browns, Cowboys over the weekend averaged 23.8 million viewers on Fox Sports. That was up 46% from last year, and it was the most watched week 1 game since 2020. Going through everything here over the last couple of weeks with football getting going, college football, now NFL, we have seen a lot of stuff like this fall. Numbers that we haven't seen since the pandemic, since COVID. And I just find it interesting. And it's just a funny, subtle reminder how much everything truly changed with COVID and from everything, from the way that we watch and talk about sports, the way we consume sports, where they're available. And it feels like a lot of that is starting to level out. and we're seeing some of these records fall again. But 23.8 million viewers on Fox Sports, the most watched NFL Week 1 game since the pandemic of 2020. All right, last topic we got for you guys here. I'm going away from football. This one's a little bit for me personally. Tyson Barry, former Colorado Avalanche defenseman, longtime fan favorite, one of the best athletes that I've been fortunate enough to cover in terms of, just an unbelievably nice guy, always willing to chat with everyone, funny as hell, just a great individual, a good hockey player and an outstanding human being. Finds a PTO with the Calgary Flames. And this has got to be one of the more confusing PTOs over the last handful of seasons for me. And it's really, more than anything else, a sign of how quickly things change, not only in professional sports, but in the NHL specifically. Just 2 seasons ago, Tyson Barry was a 55-point player and a pretty easy set-and-forget quarterback for any team's power play one. Running the point, just great puck distributor, heavy shot from the blue line, has a tendency to find lanes through traffic. Yes, he struggles a little bit in his own end. He's an undersized guy. He gets pushed around in front of the net a little bit and is not, a set-and-forget first-pairing defenseman. But this is a guy that has had no problem finding work in the past and has had no problem being a heavy contributor from a points perspective. Like I said, 2 seasons ago, he was a 55-point player playing on a power play one. Last season, acquired by Nashville. Then Nashville basically spent the entire season acting like they didn't want him. Played in just 41 games, exactly half, 1 goal, 15 points, and he was a healthy scratch a lot of nights. Especially for a team like Nashville that was, pushing, trying to be competitive, trying to find a playoff spot. I thought this was a weird player to just have on the shelf. And now they moved on from him, and he went all summer without finding a job. This was actually a guy that when I realized he was still out there, I was even a little surprised that the Avalanche didn't go knocking. Instead, opting for guys like Eric Brandstrom and Oliver Shillington. Yes, much younger, but I thought maybe someone like Tyson Barry, who on a PTO will likely be looking for a league minimum deal, I thought would have made sense. But again, the thing that I want to draw a little bit more attention to here is how his time last season in Nashville potentially impacted him this summer. His time with the Preds was not what he wanted, and it was such a departure from what he had previously experienced in his career. He had always been someone that was trusted playing with the best players. He's played with Nathan McKinnon, Connor McDavid, and Austin Matthews in his career. Again, he was never a guy that you sent out there to shut teams down at the end of a game, but he was someone that was always out if you were looking for a goal on the power play, and was, again, easy points from your back end. Something about this relationship in Nashville did not go right, and there was something about it that rubbed teams the wrong way or didn't like what they saw, and he's now going to be fighting for a job going into camp. I'm really surprised by this. I can't imagine he won't earn a contract with Calgary. To me, Tyson Barry is not a PTO player, but I will be watching this one closely. Like I said, one of the best athletes I have had the pleasure of covering. Was happy to see that PTO got officially signed this morning. He will be at Calgary Flames camp coming up here in just a couple of weeks. That is all we've got for you guys today. Went a little bit long, but I apologize. Thank you for sticking with us. That's it. Jason back there running the board today, making sure you guys can see us, hear us, all that good stuff. For Jason, I'm Jesse Montaño. We'll be back at it tomorrow morning, you guys. Thanks so much for hanging out. See you tomorrow.